56-14. Colorado absolutely walloped out here in Pullman, and I didn't expect that this was a possibility coming into this game. Washington State had lost 6 games in a row. They scored offensive, defensive, and special teams touchdown in the first quarter, and it was off to the races, especially once Shedeur Sanders got knocked out of the game.
Yeah, it just, I mean, it was ugly, from the start, and it just kept getting uglier as the game went on. And, I mean, certainly this is not one we expected. I mean, you picked a win. I was going to pick a win other than I was trying to reverse karma. So we both thought they were going to win this football game. Washington State had not been playing very good football. But, I mean, once again, the Buffs just play terribly in this stadium. And, you saw a win here in 2012, their first visit. But the 4 games since then, 152-27 they've been outscored. And, I mean, that's horrible, obviously. But none of them have been close. I mean, they've played terrible football here. All 4 times I've been here. It's not me, but maybe it is. But, yeah, tonight was probably the worst one. I think with the expectations of this team, how poorly Washington State's been playing, I think this was the worst one of the 4.
Coach Prime said after the game he again didn't feel like his team quit. And there were guys out there in the second half still trying to make plays, but clearly since the second half of that Stanford game, something's been off with this team. I think the coaches have had a hard time getting their finger on it. They've even made switches with the play caller, and nothing is really getting this team back on track. You see some improvement out of the defense, but the last couple games they've really struggled, and so there's just really struggling to find any continuity offensively, and now Shedeur Sanders has hurt his throwing arm.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that a few days ago we're talking about, okay, if they can win these 2, they'll be bowl eligible. But even if they can only win one of them, there's a chance that 5 and 7 they go to a bowl game. I think after a game like this, let's just get out of this season, right? And it doesn't matter if Shedeur Sanders can get healthy enough for Utah, just be done with this season. I think I mean, even if they beat Utah, forget a bowl game. Certainly with 7 losses, you're probably not going to, but at 5 and 7 they would be an attractive one. This season just has to end at this point. I mean, it's just kind of. It's been a sour end of this season, the one that started with so much promise. And you're right, since that Stanford game, they've tried not only the play caller, but they've tried moving different guys in different spots. Like maybe this will spark something, a new offensive guard, a new linebacker combination, a new cornerback, things like that. Nothing has really sparked this team to really click 100% on all sides of the ball. And certainly tonight, nothing clicked.
A lot of us were questioning why Travis Hunter was in the game late when it looked like his right leg kind of buckled under him. He did come back in the game after that, so that's a good sign. But and he made a couple Travis Hunter type plays out there. He's an incredible talent, but you got to kind of maybe preserve him a little bit better going forward.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, his best play was the touchdown catch from Shedeur. Actually, Shedeur gets hurt, comes back in, throws a pretty phenomenal touchdown pass to Travis. Great pass, great catch. Shedeur actually sets the single season passing record on that play, but that was about the only highlight tonight. And honestly, I thought that the game really turned right after that, because I thought they were down 14-0 at that point, and then they throw that touchdown pass. And, at least in my mind, it's like, okay, 14-7. It's still very early in this football game. You get back in it. But then the next thing is a 98-yard kickoff return for Washington State. To me, I thought that play was the biggest dagger tonight, because that took any air out of the Buffs. Because you come right back and all of a sudden you're back down 14 again. That was devastating for them. But then I think from there it just kind of snowballed.
Coach Prime really struggled to get through his post-game press conference. He's dealing with, it sounds like a flu bug. And I asked him, is that something going around the locker room? And he said, yeah. But then he was really quick to say, hey, that had nothing to do with what happened out here on the field. So didn't push off the ugly loss on the fact that there is this bug going around the locker room right now. Certainly that's not going to help a football team. Trevor Woods wasn't in the lineup defensively today. And I would imagine Juwan Mitchell's career here is over. So it's been a really tough way to kind of limp towards the finish line here. And it's tough to grasp on to positives other than the hope that Coach Prime is still your head coach and you're going to be able to hit that transfer portal, try to get those guys that are going to fill those gaps. But certainly more question marks now with this program than we've had at any point of the Coach Prime era.
Yeah, I think so. But I also think as bad as tonight was, in my mind, the narrative doesn't really change or the path doesn't change. I mean, it's still they're building for next year, and that's kind of what this is all about. And this year maybe tonight maybe magnified some of those things that they've got to hit the portal even harder than we've even talked about. But that's certainly the next step for this team is hit the portal, get some reinforcements going into next year. This was an ugly one, but the best part about tonight is this is the last time they have to come to Pullman, Washington, unless for some reason Rick George, gets hit in the head and schedules a non-conference game at Washington State. I don't think that we're going to see Colorado coming back here, or maybe sometime down the road they're in the same conference again. But for the foreseeable future, they don't have to come back here, and that's probably the best part.
I was joking with you. I would plead with any athletic director at Colorado to never schedule Washington State and never schedule Air Force. Yeah. Those are just not good matchups for you. Last trip to Pullman, you got Utah coming up next. What do you want to see out of this team before the season ends, or is it just it's get to that finish line already?
Yeah, I think it's get to the finish line, but I think that you want to see some fight out of this team at least one more time. Don't let another game like this happen. Now, it very well could at Utah because Utah is Utah. But and if you don't have Shedeur Sanders next week, then all bets are off there. But I want to see some fight out of this team and them giving a good game, giving a good effort out of Salt Lake City next week.
A loss at Toledo during the Dan Hawkins era. Mm-hmm. Sacramento State and Fresno State losses during the John Embry era. I'm trying to think of some other losses that are as tough to swallow as this one.
Yeah, I think those are right up there. I think this is one of the worst ones we've seen. I mean, there's been some others that obviously last year there was a bunch of brutal losses. That to me, that Minnesota game at home a couple years ago when the Buffs were coming off of almost beating Texas A&M, and then as poorly as they played that day, that was one of the worst ones too. So we've seen too many of those. That's for sure. I mean, when we're sitting here thinking that we know there's more,
Oregon State.
Yeah.
The comeback in 2018 as well.
Yeah, there's certainly those where they didn't get blown out, but they were horrible. The Stanford game a few weeks ago. The Stanford game, when you look back on it, might be as devastating as any of them because, like you said, this team hasn't never really bounced back from that. Same with that Oregon State game in 2018. And, we've talked about it before. We talked about it right after Stanford that 2010, that loss to Kansas where they gave up the big lead, cost them a bowl game. 2018, the loss to Oregon State cost them a bowl game. I think ultimately we're going to look back and say that Stanford game cost this team a bowl game because this is a bowl team, in my opinion. Not tonight, but this was a bowl team, and they're going to finish probably 4-8 at this point.
Well, the hospitality is always nice here at Washington State. Their SID is a great guy. It's a little tricky getting to the post-game press conference. So I don't want to come off as a rude guest here at Martin Stadium, but thank goodness this is our last trip there. We grabbed our name tags from the press box here, and symbolically, as our last trip here. Yeah, it's time to say goodbye to Pullman forever, Brian. Yeah. What do you think?
I appreciate the hospitality, yes. But yeah, I'm glad I never have to see this name tag of Washington State welcomes me back here because they may not welcome us back after this, but that's okay because it's been a nightmare for Colorado.
Pullman, I wish I could say it's been good. It's been horrible. Goodbye.